want to take a look into how Dave Weckl orchestrates and plays the Songo on Michel Camilo's Hello and Goodbye. Stay tuned. Welcome. Today I want to take a look at Dave Weckl playing on the Latin funk piece Hello and Goodbye by Michel Camilo. But before I get into it, remember to hit the red subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you know every time I upload a new video. Dave Weckl, an immensely popular drummer who came to prominence in the mid-'80s, primarily with a band called Chick Corea's Electric Band. But another one of the groups that was pretty prominent for him was the Michel Camilo Trio that also featured Anthony Jackson on bass. That trio, Dave mostly played Caribbean, Latin / funk grooves, and they had ridiculous soloing going on and incredible ensemble playing. So I want to take a look at how he orchestrates those rhythmic figures on the drum set. And I also have two examples of how he sets up those rhythms. The way I consider them, they're like filling or embellishing to target, the way he sets them up. And lastly, I definitely want to take a look at the groove, which is a songo. Dave plays a kind of a rarefied, funky version of the songo that you'll see in a minute. So let's get to it. Great, so I want to make one thing clear. This recording is not of a trio. It is a quintet with two other members than Dave Weckl, Anthony Jackson, and Michel Camilo. Lou Soloff played trumpet on this, and a friend of mine, as a matter of fact, Chris Hunter, on alto and tenor sax. Chris and I played in a band called In Sync. Now, before you get excited, it was not Justin Timberlake's band, no. This band was led by a piano player named Barry Sames, and it's spelled I-N-S-Y-N-K, In Sync, okay? Chris is a great, great player and very cool. British, actually, from England. In any case, so in the material at hand, I'm going to talk first about how Dave orchestrates the rhythm section figures off the top. Now, when I say off the top, this is when the band comes in, because Michel Camilo plays a 58-second piano solo to start the thing off, and then the band comes in. And at that moment, there are a set of figures. You know, it's the whole, that part of the piece is played almost with a classical approach. There's no groove per se, just time, and the whole band plays melody, and the rhythm section plays these figures. Okay, so Dave really executes this. I'm going to give only a short snippet of it off the very top when they come in. Plays this in a very typical way that drummers often orchestrate and distribute the sounds on the drum set with figures. So the thing to remember is that it seems to have more gravitas and musicality if you alternate the rhythms between a low timbre like the floor tom and the bass drum with a high timbre like cymbals and the snare drum. And usually you support either that main drum with a cymbal, like so. Or you can also create long and short sounds with the hi-hat. Long. See how I closed off the long sound with the snare drum? Or short. So you can find different ways of creating long and short sounds, low and high timbres, and distributing or orchestrating them among the rhythmic figures that you encounter. So I'll play at 58 seconds in, I'll play the cold, rhythms that the section is playing. just like as you would see it in the chart. Make sure to download the PDF so you can follow along all this. I'll do it half as fast first so you can kind of get a feel for it. So here's the rhythm half as fast. One, two, one, two, three, four. Okay, so let's stay on that speed. If we're going to play it on just one timbre, let's say just high. Okay, so I'll play the snare drum and this cymbal for the same thing. One, two, three, four. Okay, that could work, right? That doesn't sound bad. But let's say we distribute it now. We'll alternate it. I'll play one note with the bass drum and the cymbal, the other note with the snare drum and the cymbal, and see what that does to it. One, two, one, two, three. Okay, that's sort of starting to take a little more shape, you know. And the more sounds you have on your drum set, you don't have to have a drum set this size. You can play up on the bell, you know, have this lighter sound. It all depends on what the ensemble sounds like. But already by distributing it like that, it seemed a little more musical. At least it did to me. Now Dave goes further in that he kind of frames the rhythms that you get by adding notes to it, typically known as a setup. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but he'll add notes. So if you look at the line underneath the cold, you know, charted stuff, you can see how he actually went ahead and played that. Okay, so I'll do that now half as fast so you can see how he distributed the rhythms amongst the kick and snare, and also how it incorporates the hi-hat to create long and short sounds, right? And how he sets up those rhythms by adding extra notes. Okay, let's do it slowly at first. One, two, one, two. Now that really sounds musical to me, right? You know, he's able to create this sort of push and pull dynamically, and also able to really articulate very accurately how the horn players are playing, especially because you know he's really using long and short sounds to make it feel and sound very similar to the well, not the horn players, sorry, because these are rhythm section. It's the bass player and the piano. Okay, great. So let's play what he did there up tempo. Oh, by the way, this is written in cut time, so just be aware of that. Okay, so let's move on to discuss what I mentioned before, setting up a figure. I like to think of it as embellishing or filling to target. Like you know that you're going to play a certain rhythm, either it's going to be on the beat or off the beat, and then you want to fill up the space, a very small amount of space right before it, so that other musicians feel comfortable with where to place that figure. And also, it should sound musical. Again, typically incorporating this idea of low to high timbre relationship, you know, play a high timbre before a low and a low timbre before a high shot or figure. Okay, so let's take a look at the first example. Let's see, that occurs on line 2. right? So that would be bar 6 through 9 through 10, 6 through 10, bar 6 through 10. And here is the figure, the cold figure half as fast. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So Dave pretty much plays that line, but if you take a look at the second bar, he omits an eighth note, the end of 2. He omits that and just kind of frames that bar, like outlines it, because he doesn't play all the notes. So even though he's not actually adding a note, it kind of feels like he's setting that up, to me at least it does, by offering up that space. And then in the fourth bar, he plays a figure from the closed hi-hat, 2 ride cymbals, to a snare drum on the end of 2, if you're thinking in 4/4, or the 4th, 8th note, right? If you're thinking in 2. So let's see, let's do that one. Now I'm going to play exactly the way that Dave orchestrated it, and pay attention to those 2 bars that I mentioned. Oh, also in the 4th bar, he adds a note on the high tom on the 8-inch that isn't in the actual figure, and it kind of sets up the end of 4, or if you're in 4/4, and the last 8th note of the bar if you're thinking in 2. Okay, so let me play that whole thing. Pay attention as I highlighted those in red so you can see what I'm talking about on the PDF. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. So if you recall the actual figure, you can see how accurate it is, especially if you look at it on the PDF. You can see how everything lines up very similarly, except for those added little features. It's pretty subtle stuff, but it makes a difference. So let me play it up to tempo. I mean, that really sounds good with the rhythm section. All right. So another example of that is a much tougher spot where this is, let's see, bar 48 through 50. There's this really cool section where the horns play these triplet riffs. And Dave sort of adds these little notes, these little, almost sound like they swing because they're in triplets, but in the context of the straight 8th feel of the Latin groove, they seem to stick out, almost like they're in time, but they just really stick out to me. And they almost, they disorient you in terms of where the 1 actually is. And he adds notes to fill in the space between the lines of the horn players. So I'll play this one slow again, and then we'll do it fast after. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And now up to tempo. As you can see the added notes in red on the PDF. Filling to target. Setting up the other figures. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 1. I like to draw your attention to the Songo, which is the primary feel that's played throughout this whole piece. First, I'll play it slow so you can get a sense of how the sticking and how the feet work with it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. now fast, or twice as fast. 1, 2. Now the way Dave Weckl plays the Songo feel in this, it's kind of rarefied, it's kind of thinned out. Doesn't play it in quite an ornate way. There's not as many notes on the snare drum. I kind of feel like the bass drum and the snare drum seem to play off each other. It's almost like the same rhythm that's been displaced by an eighth note. Okay, you'll see what I mean when you try it. I'll do it slow first. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And up the tempo. All right, so that's a really quick peek into how Dave Weckl plays on Hello and Goodbye by Michel Camilo. Definitely download the PDF. Check out the transcription of the head, if you will, of that piece, at least the when the rhythm session comes in, and try it out. It's really cool. In some ways it's easier than it sounds, but by no means is it easy to do. So give it a shot. See how you do with it. Hope you like this video. If you do, please like it and share it. Visit aubreydrumlessons.com for more drumming info. You can also get in touch with me there for Skype lessons. I do offer Skype lessons. Lastly, you can catch me on Instagram as well. So again, thanks for checking me out, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching my video. Really glad you did that. Subscribe and click here if you want more performance and lesson videos.